guys, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I am doing another Top 5 Wednesday, which were created by Lainey at Ginger Reads Lainey. I will post the links to her YouTube channel down below, as well as the Goodreads group, if you guys want to get involved. And this week's topic is our biggest badasses. So our favorite characters in literature who just exemplarize, who are just freaking badasses, who kick ass and are amazing. And I am really bad at narrowing things down. So a combination of, I think my top 5 is way too predictable and just repeating stuff I've been saying before, combined with I really wanted to broaden it because I read so much sci-fi and fantasy, and you just naturally have kick-ass characters in those books because you have this hero, usually. So I wanted to broaden it, so I actually have a top 10 list for you guys today. Apparently I can't just do a top 5 list, guys. Can't follow directions. So at number 10, I have Don Quixote, Don Quixote de la Mancha, from the book Don Quixote by Cervantes, and I really just like saying that name, Don Quixote. Come on, guys, it's a great name. And actually, I haven't finished this book. I'm at page 60-something out of 900. And I am basing this almost entirely off of the Wishbone episode, The Impossible Dream, where Wishbone is Sancho Panza, Don Quixote's squire. But I still think he gets pretty kick-ass from what the little bit I've read of him and having watched that. This is also the book that Mana La Mancha is based off of, if you guys have seen that musical. I haven't seen that either. But trust me, guys, Don Quixote is pretty badass. He is this kind of normal Spanish guy. This is after the time of the knights, but he is completely infatuated with these tales of knights and chivalry and adventures. So he decides to go out and be a knight and to bring back the age of chivalry. And he goes throughout Spain having these adventures and righting wrongs and defending the weak. And in the process, he falls in love with the lovely Dulcinea, who is basically just a bar wench and pretty normal, but he sees her as the most gorgeous and fair lady in all the land. And a lot of this is just happening in Don Quixote's brain. Like, he sees these windmills and decides to fight them because he thinks they're giants. And just all this stuff that isn't really happening, but is happening in his brain, and he just goes out and fights things that he is kind of terrified of. And I think that's pretty kick-ass. Even though it's not actually real and not actually happening, Don Quixote thinks it is. And if you can face your own nightmares like that, then that is pretty badass. Plus, it's a fun name to say, Don Quixote. And clearly, I need to finish book. At number 9, I have Toothless and also Hiccup from the How to Train Your Dragon series by Cressida Cowell. This is one of the audiobooks, and they are narrated by David Tennant, which I totally love. And even though I've already read this book, I want to listen to the audiobook again. Because I haven't heard this one, and also that is freaking awesome. Okay, so Toothless is Hiccup's dragon, and unlike in the movies, Hiccup is this little tiny dragon. He's like the size of a dog, like not even a big dog. Whereas all these other people have these big dragons that you can ride on and stuff. Toothless, you can't ride Toothless. And Toothless literally does not have any teeth, hence the name. And he is such just a little baby. He is afraid of everything and just terrified. But he's also really snarky and sarcastic, and I love Toothless so much. Seriously, he's a little baby. And the things he does for Hiccup and the things he and Hiccup accomplishes together are really freaking amazing. These are things that these really giant, fierce dragons and their master riders, whatever, can't do. And so we have this combination of Hiccup's brains with Toothless just kind of charging in and trusting Hiccup. And I don't want to spoil this series for you, but the two of them together are so freaking amazing. There's going to be a lot of me not wanting to spoil things for you guys. I'm going to be as vague as possible while telling you these characters are really badass. But really is, like when they take on dragons that are the size of islands. And Hiccup is the size of a dog. Like, disproportionate. And I love it. I love Toothless, my little baby. At number 8 is Henry V, from Henry V by William Shakespeare. He also appears in Henry IV Part 1 and Henry IV Part 2 as Prince Harry or Prince Hal, who is the Crown Prince of England, Henry IV's son. And I don't have Henry V apparently, so ta-da! Anyway, this makes up these 3 plays along with Richard II make up this group of plays that are interlinked and tell this chronological history of England. And if you combine what's happening in Henry IV Part 1, Henry IV Part 2, and Henry V, we get to see this character mature and grow up from being a playboy who has very little interest in kind of ruling the country and just wants to chill and enjoy being the crown prince and everybody's favorite son, and gets into all kinds of chaos in Henry IV Part 1, to Henry V when he is ruling all of England and really grows into his badassery. So in Henry V, the big part of this is the Battle of Agincourt, which is one of England's biggest victories. So they were up against the French as part of the Hundred Years' War. They were outnumbered on French territory and pretty much expected to lose. But Henry V gives this amazing speech, the once more onto the breach speech, and it's totally kick-ass, and unites his troops. He's the night before gone in and disguised himself as a soldier and just bonded with his troops to really see where they're coming from. And then he gives this amazing speech on St. Crispian's Day, and they go into battle and they completely defeat the French. And so freaking amazing, so badass. I really, really love that. So if you guys haven't seen these, there is a Kenneth Branagh film for Henry V, which is pretty cool. And I really, really love the Hollow Crown series by the BBC, which has Tom Hiddleston playing Henry V, and it's amazing. So yeah, they're plays. You should watch them, not just read them. Okay. At number 7, I have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and the main character, Jane Eyre, is just so cool. She manages to keep her wits about her and follow her own very strong moral compass in some really, really bizarre circumstances. What's going on, and Mr. Rochester's place. Why can't I remember the name of this manor? But crazy things are going on in Mr. Rochester's house, and I would not have had her resolve and stood my ground as well as she does. Halfway through this book, I would have given in and been like, all right, Mr. Rochester, why yes, you can have whatever you want. I am madly in love with you. But Jane Eyre manages to keep her grounds and ends up with an even better ending because of it, and freaking could not be her, so badassery off the charts. At number 6, I have Twelfth Night, or What You Will by William Shakespeare, and the character of Viola / Cesario takes the badassery cake in this one. Viola gets shipwrecked and ends up on the island pretty much by herself. And because of the way women are treated and viewed at the time, she dresses up as a mad Cesario and goes into town. She manages to make her way into the house of Duke Orsino, become a trusted confidant of his, and while she is falling in love with Duke Orsino, he is madly in love with the Lady Olivia and sends Cesario to go woo Olivia for him. Olivia ends up falling in love with Cesario, and yeah, things are complicated. This is one of Shakespeare's comedies, though, so it's totally awesome and amazing, the ending. And basically, Viola gets badassery points for A, surviving the shipwreck, having the wits about her, being able to impersonate a man so fully that she can trick the Duke, and sucking it up and dealing with her broken heart and still being loyal to the man that she loves. And at number 5, I told you these top 5 were going to be relatively obvious if you guys know me, and these And in an attempt not to spoil entire series, I'm going to be relatively vague. Relatively vague, and I'm sorry. But at number 5, I have Cinder from the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. Book number 1 is called Cinder. This takes place in a dystopian future, and Cinder is just this mechanic in New Beijing, in China, on Earth, and she ends up fighting the Queen of the Moon, who's trying to take over all of Earth. And basically, she's completely evil and awful and horrible. And Cinder bravely faces this plague that kills people within a matter of days. It's really deadly. And just how Cinder manages to fight the Queen, stand up to this really awful Queen repeatedly, gain the confidence of the Prince, get a group of rebels around her, and eventually manages to save both the Earth and the Moon is freaking awesome. So if you guys have not checked out the Lunar Chronicles yet, please do it. I really love it. And all of these rebels are major badasses, but Cinder, I think, is the most badass of badasses. Yeah. Sorry for vagueness. At number 4, I have Katie Chandler from the Enchanted Ink series by Shanna Swenson. And Katie Chandler works for a magical company with all these wizards and pixies and fairies and magical creatures. But Katie is completely and totally not magical. She has no magic in her whatsoever, which becomes kind of her superpower. So she can see through spells because they don't work on her. People can't use illusions and things past her. So she becomes invaluable to them as kind of telling them what is actually going on because they are blinded by spells that other people are casting on them. And she manages to hold her own against and with wizards, and it is just so awesome. Most of the people she is working with and fighting are guys, so Katie is the singular girl representing girl power, and love it. She also works for Merlin from Arthurian legend Merlin, who runs the whole magic company, and he looks to Katie for advice and trusts her. So to have Merlin's ear and to be advising Merlin is pretty awesome. So, I totally love it. She has an awesome softball pitch and manages to use things like physical fighting. Yeah, she manages to hold her own as well as in physical fighting as well as outthinking them and knowing her own strengths and figuring out other people's weaknesses. And she's freaking amazing. And clearly I need to reread these books just so I can review them for you. You guys will know how amazing these books are. Really, really, really love it. At number 3 is Jace from the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I don't have book 1, so I have book 2. This is book 2. Book 1 is City of Bones. And that is Jace. So I am only just finished book 2, so out of a 6-book series. So far, I think Jace is the most badass of all the Shadowhunters, and maybe that will change. And I am including all the Shadowhunters to also include the Infernal Devices series, also by Cassandra Clare. And just Jace's wit and his ability to kind of the way that Jace can hold his own against Valentine, who likes to get into your brain and use your deepest desires and darkest fears against you, and the fact that Jace can hold a conversation with him and not really be influenced by Valentine too much is pretty impressive. And then Jace has really amazing skills at fighting demons that Shadowhunters have, and he is more skilled than some of the other Shadowhunters we've seen. And then he also has a great sarcastic wit and is sassy. I just really am loving Jace right now. He is my favorite Shadowhunter, so yes. Maybe I will feel differently by the time I reach book 6, but right now, Jace is my favorite. Clary and the others are also pretty badass, but Jace is the most badass. At number 2, I have Sirius Black from the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. This is Prisoner of Azkaban when we first see Sirius Black, and I really love him. He is Harry's godfather and best friend of James Potter, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew. And when we first meet him, he escapes from prison, has spent 12 years behind bars in probably the worst prison I have ever heard of, where there are dementors who literally suck your soul out of you. And Sirius manages to keep his courage amongst all of that and escapes from a prison nobody has ever escaped from. And when he does get out into the wizarding world, he's just such a cool character. The way that he is part of the Order of the Phoenix and fights the Death Eaters, but he's also just such a great father figure to Harry, and the way that he can think outside the box. I really, really love Sirius. He's just so amazing. I love him. Second most badass character is Remus Lupin, if you're wondering, who is a werewolf and it's totally awesome. And hopefully you guys have read Harry Potter, so I didn't spoil that for you. But yeah. Yes, out of all the badass characters in the Harry Potter series, Sirius gets the most badass. Although Molly Weasley in book 7 has one really, really badass moment. Yeah. Okay, at number 1 is probably no surprise. It is From the Princess Bride by William Goldman, and the most badass character in there is Wesley. He just is, guys. He is. So this is an adventure story, kind of this epic tale of the farm boy Wesley and his love Buttercup, who thinks him dead, so she agrees to marry the prince, who turns out to be not so great, and Wesley manages to save the princess, and in the process he manages to not only fight, but then turn it around so that these guys become on his side. So first he is shipwrecked, or first his ship gets captured by the Dread Pirate Roberts, who takes no survivors, but Wesley manages to convince him, A, not to kill Wesley, and then B, Wesley then takes over for the Dread Pirate Roberts when he retires. So totally gains his trust. Then he battles Nino Montoya and Fezzik, who are the best swordsmen and the strongest men in the world, and beats them at their strengths, and then convinces them to join his side. So not just beating them, but convinces them to join his crusade. He beats Vincini in a battle of wits, who is the smartest of the villains, and then goes up against Count Rugen and Prince Humperdinck, who kind of just hold all the strings in this town, in this country, and just basically everything Wesley does is totally epic and amazing and really, really badass. I really love Wesley, guys. So, I loves it so much. It is my favorite book ever. If you haven't read The Princess Bride yet, go read it. And Wesley is definitely the biggest badass character I've ever read. So there you guys go. There was my top 5 Wednesday that became a top 10 for the biggest badasses. Let me know in the comments below what your favorites are, if I missed any, if somebody else was more badass, whatever. I want to hear from you guys. So peace out, I love you, and keep reading. Bye!